Hearty good morning to all. From our English Reader course book, turn page number 102. In our page number 102, we have lesson 9, The Wolf Children, part 1. The Wolf Children is authorized by Mika Samuda, who is well known for the books such as Oxford Junior Readers. The setting of the story is in the Indian village of Godamuri, Midnapur, West Calcutta. Before laying the foundation of the story, let us talk about the characters. This story has 6 characters. First, the Reverend Singh. Second, some village people. Third, the he-wolf. Fourth, the she-wolf. Fifth, 2 small cubs. And sixth, 2 hideous beings. The people of Godamuri had heard the tale of the demons residing in a giant ant-hill in the nearby jungle. They had heard their howls and strange yelping cries. Some of them had actually seen the demons. They appear in half human and half animal. The villagers' mind was surrounded by superstitious thoughts and the fear hammered their lives. No one dared to come out of the house from the evening onwards. The tale of the demons was heard by the Reverend Joseph Amritolal Singh, who was running his own orphanage in the care of his wife, Mrs. Singh. The Reverend Singh determined to know the fact of the demons. So, he took the help of some brave and courageous people of the village Godamuri. Later, what happened we would come to know in this story. So, let's step into the story. Welcome back to the story, The Wolf Children, Part 1. It was October 9th, 1920, the second half of the day. A wooden hunting platform was hastily built and 6 men were waiting for the time to arrive to get a view of the jungle demons. They were staring at the giant anthill from where the jungle demons were supposed to appear. After sunset, the forest was bathed in a deep red glow and the bats were moving towards the jungle. All of a sudden, they saw a he-wolf emerging from the anthill. Behind him, there was a she-wolf. After her, 2 small cubs were visible. Then something else emerged. It was not easy to recognize what was there. 2 hideous beings were there. Both of them had matted hair, which covered their faces, and both walked on all fours. Seeing such a strange creature, the 6 men who were watching from the wooden platform reacted in different manners. Some arranged the rifle to shoot, some were frightened, some were not believing their eyes, while others were aghast. The Reverend Singh signaled not to shoot. He wanted to view every action of the monster and write down in his notebook. Now, everything was clear as they had heard the tale of the demons from the village people. The Reverend Singh observed the 2 hideous beings and wrote each activity of them in his diary. Then they climbed down the wooden platform and were back to the village. Once again, welcome back to the story, The Wolf Children, Part 1. It so happened that the Reverend Singh wanted to separate the 2 hideous beings from the pack of the wolves. It was his desire to do so, but the work was just as to put the hand inside the snake's hole. The work was full of danger, but the Reverend Singh was not disheartened. Why, do you know? Because he had observed the gestures and postures of the two hideous beings. He was sure they were human beings and not the monster or the supernatural creature as the village people used to say about them. So, the next day, the Reverend Singh tried to get help from the villagers to capture the wolf children. But the villagers stepped back and refused to help him. They believed that the wolf children were evil spirits yet. Then the Reverend Singh left the village and went 7 miles away to seek help from the other village people. A week later, the hunting party moved towards the lair. They were armed with bows and arrows, spade, spears, and thick wooden sticks. When they came close to the lair, they spread out in a circle and started beating the ground. This feared the other small animals into the open. Two of the men started digging at the entrance. Few minutes later, a wolf sprang out, and the men were frightened at a sudden. Then another wolf emerged. That was the she-wolf, who was courageously trying to defend her young ones. She arched her back and bared her teeth. The men shot several arrows at her. She rolled over in agony. The Reverend Singh felt a bit bitter at the action of the men. He did not want to hurt or kill any of the wolves, so he took a spade and started digging into the anthill. This was the end of the story, The Wolf Children Part 1. The Wolf Children is authorized by Mika Samuda, who is well known for the books such as Oxford Junior Readers. The setting of the story is in the Indian village of Godamuri, Midnapur, West Calcutta. This story has 5 characters. First, the Reverend Singh, second, Mrs. Singh, third, Amla, fourth, Kamla, and fifth, Mrs. Singh's aunt. The Reverend Joseph Amrito Lal Singh had heard the tale of the demons and he wanted to know the fact of the demons. He had arranged a hunting party and tried to know something more about the hideous beings. He had viewed them as a human child, so he wanted to get them and learn something more, like how he would be able to give them a normal life like other children. What was his idea? What was his plan? What happened to the wolf children? Everything we would come to know through this story. So, let's step into the story. Welcome back to the story The Wolf Children Part 2. The Reverend Singh continued digging the anthill and got a sight of 4 trembling creatures laying in a ball of fur and hair. The ball was made up of 2 wolf cubs and 2 little girls. Mr. Singh was astonished. Mr. Singh took the 2 girls to the orphanage at Midnapur and handed over them to Mrs. Singh. Mrs. Singh could hardly believe her eyes. Now, let me introduce the wolf children to you. Both had thick, rough skin on their hands. Knees and elbows were used to move, means they moved on all fours. When they wanted to go a short way, they used their knees and elbows. But when they wanted to run, they would travel using their hands and feet. So, as a mother's care, Mrs. Singh gave them each a dish of milk. They lapped up with their tongues. She tried to touch them, but they growled and snapped her hand. Then the girls were given the names Amla and Kamla. Amla means bright yellow flower and Kamla means lotus flower. Now, Mr. Singh decided the discovery of the children to be kept a secret. But as the day was shifting, the people of Midnapur came to learn about the wolf children. How did it happen so? Because the orphanage echoed with their howling sound. It was not normal, it was strange, something like the sound of any animal. Mr. and Mrs. Singh want to give them a normal life like other children. So they wanted to get mingle both the girls with the other normal children. The wolf girls were given toys to play with. What did they do, you know? They both simply chewed them as if they were bones. Bones are hard, isn't it? And the toys were also hard. So they took them as bones and chewed them. Next, they were taken to the playground to play with the other children. A boy tried to make friends with the wolf girls, but they attacked and wounded him. Soon, he was rescued from the playful attack. It was noticed that only at night they become active. They would howl and try their best to make an attempt to escape. They had fully developed the wildlife of the wolves. They were nocturnals. It was a big problem to educate them. Not only this, it was a tough work to make them realize that they were not animals but human beings. A month later, both girls fell seriously ill and sadly Amla died of kidney disease on 21 September 1921. After her death, Kamla would sniff round for Amla's scent. Then, slowly but least improvement was seen in Kamala's behavior. She started eating cooked meat, and the day came when she made her first human sound. Next, Mrs. Singh massaged Kamala's legs to stand upright. In 1922, she could walk on her knees, and a few months later, she rose up on her two legs for the first time. Seeing this, the Reverend Singh was delighted. He acted as a father. Then some more improvements were seen. She was no longer a terrific wolf child. She started trusting on humans. She managed to learn about 50 words by 1929. Her life became busy in the orphanage garden and started talking to the flowers and animals such as chickens, goats, puppies, and trees. Then suddenly, Mrs. Singh had to go to visit her aunt who was seriously ill. Now, Kamla was alone. She couldn't understand why Mrs. Singh had left her. For 2 weeks, she went back to her old ways. When Mrs. Singh was back, Kamla heard the words, "Quick, Kamla, Mama has come back." These words acted like a magic and Kamla ran to greet Mrs. Singh. Both hugged each other. Unfortunately, on 14th November 1929, Kamla died too of her kidney failure. Thus, Amla and Kamla both died of the kidney problem. Thank you.